What's up, people of the internet? My name is Dabacab, and the leaked cards are continuing to roll in. We've got about 10 to 15 new cards to go over, so stay tuned. Alright, so someone over in Asia is apparently leaking all kinds of cards. They leaked a bunch yesterday and a few more last night, so we're going to go over them today. And so I should apologize in advance for the poor quality on these images. Keep in mind that these are kind of like third-party quick screenshots that fans grabbed of the leaks, so we're gonna have to just deal with the poor image quality. Sorry about that, not my fault. These are the best I have. So first off, we have Treant Protector, a green hero with 4 attack and 10 health. His passive gives 2 armor to adjacent allies. That is a lot of armor. That makes him way better than Farvin the Dreamer right off the bat. Of course, we don't exactly know what his premier card is, so it could be really terrible, which actually makes Farvin the Dreamer better than Treant Protector. But in terms of just the hero's body and its passive, the Treant Protector is completely dominating Farvin the Dreamer, no contest. His premier card is a 4 mana creep with 2 attack, and the ability is your tower something, who knows? Who knows? My guess is either your tower has armor or your tower has regeneration, but who knows? I think regeneration could be a cool effect. Kind of makes sense because he's a tree. He kind of regrows the tower with roots and stuff. I'm hoping that's the effect because that's a really neat effect. Next up is Smeagol Arm Master. It's a fitting name because this guy has some beef arms. This guy clearly lifts. Anyways, this is a 4-cost red creep with 2 attack and 2 health, and when you play him, you modify a random allied hero with +2 attack. So it's a bit similar to the other Smeagol creep card that we've seen so far. These cards are kind of interesting because the buff that they give heroes is really nice, but a 2/2 body is abysmal. What makes these so bad is that they die to enemy creep. So playing this is basically just giving your opponent 1 gold. But still, the modified hero with +2 attack is pretty solid, so he might see play. We'll have to see. Alright, so next up is Sven. We've seen the body of Sven teased before, but we have just learned his ability with this leak. He has +X cleave, where X is equal to half of his attack. Now, I don't exactly know how the math works in Artifact, but my guess is that you round down. We do know from packs that if you give an odd amount of gold to the mercenaries, then the odd gold will be rounded down. So it stands to reason that that same math applies here, meaning that Sven will have by default 2 cleave. But if you give him any more attack through items such as Blade of the Vigil, the extra attack will translate into extra cleave, meaning he will mow down the enemy line. His premier card is God's something. I'm gonna guess God's Sven. No, that can't be the title. And it reads Modify A. So quite possibly the most useless teaser text we have ever seen on a premier card. We have no idea what that does. If I had to do a complete shot in the dark, I would just guess that it's modify a hero with + attack. You might think, oh, but it's Sven, it might be modify a hero with + cleave, but I'm thinking the idea is it's + attack because + attack is more generically useful, and the + attack will translate into + cleave for Sven. So my guess is that it's + attack. A great card to pair with Sven, considering that he has lower base attack and higher cleave, is Sucker Punch. This is a 4 mana red spell that reads stun a unit blocking an allied red hero this round, deal 2 damage to that unit. So it's a pretty basic idea. You smack an enemy unit in the face and stun them. Stun, for those of you who don't know, is quite possibly the best debuff that you can put on an enemy unit in Artifact. In fact, I think it is actually the best debuff. Basically what it does is it silences the target so that they can't cast spells. Meaning if you Sucker Punch a Phantom Assassin, and Phantom Assassin is the only black hero in the lane, then the opponent can't play any more black spells. Secondly, it also disarms them. Disarmed units effectively have 0 attack and deal 0 damage. So when you smack into that unit in the combat phase, your hero will not be taking any damage. Once again, perfect for Sven because Sven doesn't have any armor. Honestly, these two cards have a lot of synergy together, so I wouldn't be surprised if we saw this card in Sven decks. Alright, next up is the black improvement spell Unsupervised Artillery. The ability is a bit of a mouthful. It is a 1-turn active ability. Deal 4 piercing damage to the enemy tower. May only be used if there are no unblocked enemies. So essentially what that means, if anywhere in this lane, if the enemy has a card and you don't have a card in front of their card, then you cannot use this ability. Now you might be wondering, we've already seen trebuchets which do passive damage to the enemy tower, and that's automatic. Same thing with conflagration. A lot of these damage improvements are automatic. So how come this improvement is not automatic and instead it is an active ability? The reason for that is pretty simple. Basically, there will be many opportunities throughout your turn to trigger it. It may be the case that when you enter the lane, there's an unblocked creep, maybe a melee creep that spawned during the deployment phase. In that case, this active ability will not be usable, but you can simply play a creep card in front of that melee creep, and then assuming that the enemy doesn't play another creep, then when it comes back to you, you can use this ability. So I just really like that this card has built-in counterplay. I think it's one of the more interesting improvements that we've seen so far. I wouldn't be terribly surprised if this card became a staple in Zoo decks. After all, Zoo decks play lots and lots of very cheap units, go very wide and overwhelm their opponent. So the idea is if you have tons of units blocking their unit, then you will always be able to trigger this card. There's just a lot of synergy between this card and Zoo decks. Next up is Tyler Estate Censor. This is a black creep with 2 attack and 8 health. Plus the enemy tower has -1 mana. The obvious parallel here is Arcane Censure, also at 4 mana. Both of them give -1 mana, but this gives a body on top of it. Of course, the disadvantage of this card is that it's not permanent. If you play this creep and the enemy instantly destroys it, then the tower's mana returns to normal. Despite that weakness, I think this card is objectively better than Arcane Censure. Arcane Censure is just too expensive for the cost, and honestly this creep card is so healthy at 8 health that it's going to be kind of hard to deal with. So I could see playing this especially on opportune turns to shut down the opponent. If the enemy is playing blue and they have just hit turn 7 and they have Zeus in the first lane, you can reasonably expect a Thunder God's Wrath. So you can slap down this card and shut down Thunder God's Wrath for at least one more turn. Next up is a beastly spell, Murder Plot. This is a 4 mana black spell that reads, give a black hero +8 attack this round. Choose a combat target for it. Now this card is called Murder Plot, not Tower Destruction Plot. So it looks like this is very clearly intended to be used to kill units and not to smack into towers. Of course, just because it requires you to point an arrow at a unit doesn't mean it must hit that unit. I could see this comboing fairly well with Slay. Play this on a black hero like Sorla Khan to get +8 damage. That would mean a total of 20 damage on Sorla Khan if she hits the tower. But alas, she's gonna hit a unit because this card requires it. But if you play Slay for just 3 mana, you can condemn the creep that Sorla Khan is targeting, freeing up that empty slot to the tower. So there's some pretty strong synergy here, and overall +8 attack is a massive amount. Very interested to see how this card plays out once we're able to dive into the game. Next up, we have the black hero Lion. He is a 6/5. He has an active ability, Finger of Death, that deals 8 piercing damage to a unit. Now, it says on this picture that the cooldown is 0. That is a glitch. We don't exactly know what the real cooldown is, but I can guarantee you it's not 0. Otherwise, all you'd have to do is put Lion down in the lane, click, kill, click, kill, click, kill. It'd be insanely OP. So my guess is that the cooldown is something like 5 to 6 turns. It seems like a really powerful effect. Maybe it'll be as low as 4, but I'd be very surprised if it were lower than that. Next up is Relentless Pursuit, a 1 mana black spell that reads, choose a unit in another lane. Move a random allied black hero from this lane to that lane. Then deal 2 damage to the chosen unit. So this is a cheap way to teleport black heroes from one lane to another and get a little bit of damage in. The thing that's really surprising is that this card exists when we also have Grazing Shot. Grazing Shot is a 1 mana black card that deals 2 damage. This is a 1 mana black card that deals 2 damage and teleports. So it kind of seems like this is an objectively better version than Grazing Shot. However, it is worth mentioning that one of the benefits of Grazing Shot is that you can deal damage to units in your lane, whereas this can't deal damage to units in your lane. So Grazing Shot is stronger in that specific circumstance, but nonetheless, I do feel like this is probably a, just in general, much better option than Grazing Shot. Next up is Collateral Damage, a 4-cost black spell. Modify a black hero with +3 siege. Siege is a very powerful effect because it ensures that you're going to be dealing damage to the enemy tower, and of course, that's everyone's win condition, tower damage. So it's a really useful effect. However, 3 siege for 4 mana seems a little bit pricey, especially when we compare it to other similar spells like Empower. Empower also costs 4 mana, but it's modify a unit, not just a black hero, not just a green hero, but any unit with +3 attack and +3 cleave. Whereas Collateral Damage is just +3 siege. It'd be a lot nicer if it also gave +3 attack, but apparently siege is just stronger than attack and cleave, or it may be the case that black is not quite as good as buffing, so as a result it's a little bit more expensive. Either way, this card on paper feels a little bit weak compared to other buffing cards, but you know, maybe I am underestimating siege. Hitting towers is super important. Next up is Hellbear Crippler. This is a 3 creep card, and oh my god, this is the buffest bear I have ever seen. Look at these dude's muscles. He is ripped, completely stacked. Anyways, this card's ability reads, whenever Hellbear Crippler deals battle damage to a unit, modify that unit with -1 attack. So obviously this is a great card to put up against enemy heroes. Sure, it's probably going to die instantly, but if you put this up in front of a weak blue hero, like let's say Earthshaker, the first hit it will survive, it will bring Earthshaker from 2 attack to 1 attack, and then the next time it will take it down to 0 attack. And I'm guessing that since you can have negative armor, you can probably also have negative attack. Now, does that mean that if he attacks someone, he'll actually heal? Probably not. I don't really know how that works. That'd be a little bit ridiculous. But nonetheless, this card's got a little bit of potential. It would be stronger if it had a bigger body. It's kind of weak at just 3/3. Most heroes will just kill it. But who knows, maybe it can find mileage in like a red-green deck that buffs it up and makes it super, super strong so it survives a couple of turns and applies that debuff multiple times, which completely cripples an enemy hero. And rounding out the list, the last card we have is Buying Time. This is a 3-cost blue spell that reads, give 2 random cards in opponent's hand +2 lock. What is lock? We have no idea. I have no idea. It could mean anything. Unfortunately, this leak doesn't include the mechanics of lock, but we can reasonably speculate. I have 2 guesses. My first guess is that it increases the cost of those cards by 2. So for example, you play this card, it increases the cost of Thunder God's Wrath from 7 mana to 9 mana. The idea is the opponent has to spend more mana on it, which slows them down, thus buying you time. The other possible idea is simply you can't cast that card for 2 turns. Now, I don't know if that would be a turn as in turn 1 in a lane, turn 2 in a lane, and then turn 3, so you could cast it in lane 3, or it could be a full round, so like 1 turn and then 2 turns, and then the next time you come back to the first lane, you can cast it over again. That would also fit the mechanic of buying time because the opponent literally can't play the card for 2 extra turns. That seems a bit strong. I don't know if that would be the mechanic, but who knows? If you have any theories, I would love to hear your thoughts down in the comments. Please let me know. What does this ability mean? I would love to find out. So please write down in the comments what you think. Also, what's your favorite card of these leaked cards? Thank you so much for watching. Dabacab out.